Welcome to the Missouri Baptist Coaches Show. I'm Harry Schrader. Head coach Jason Buryanek is with us and getting ready for the game against Taylor this weekend. And first of all, I know you guys played the number one team in the nation, and it didn't turn out awesome for you guys, but you feel like you maybe had some highlights, had some times where you guys played pretty well. Give us kind of the silver lining behind losing to the number one team in the country.
Well, like you said, I think there was a lot of good things that came out of it. The final score was not obviously what we wanted, but compared last year, we really struggled offensively to get things going, and there were times offensively that we really did a nice job, moved the chains. We would get to points and we stalled out, and that's a credit to them. That's a good defense. But, for us, I thought it was really big that we came out, we gave up an early touchdown defensively, and the offense answered back. And then early in the first quarter, it's 7-7. I thought that was a big deal for us, getting some confidence going. I thought defensively, the guys did a great job of executing the game plan. We knew that was a very good football team, that there were points, areas, especially up front with their offensive line versus our defensive line, that physically we just didn't match up great against them. And there was times where that showed, especially in the run game. But we came in with some very specific goals in terms of not allowing Krishan Hogan, who's a phenomenal player, to go crazy on us like he had against a lot of other teams. And they had another receiver, that Trey White, that was averaging 120 yards a game. And I thought our defensive backs and our secondary did a great job against them. We held Hogan under his season average. We held White to 0 catches on the day. So we had some very specific things that we laid out to the defense that we wanted to see executed, and they did a phenomenal job of it. And offensively, we moved the chains, got some things going, just weren't consistent enough.
Part of the problem with your offense, obviously your quarterback goes down in the game, your running back goes down in the game. How hard is it to adjust right in the middle of the game? Here's our game plan. We're going to do this and that with Ontario or this with Jordan, and then they go down.
Well, it's the next man up mantra. The one difference is that the next guy up. The guy who in this last week it was Jacob Hunt, doesn't get the same number of reps, obviously. And so, it's really on them to make sure they're preparing throughout the week. When Ontario goes down, guys like Tyler Curtis and Austin Schultz and Kendall Davis need to step up. And I thought they did. It just, from a rep standpoint, you're getting your reps in the game and trying to get in the flow of things a little bit. So it is challenging.
But does it change also maybe even the plays you call, because Jacob doesn't throw this ball as well as Jordan, he throws that one better, those kinds of things?
Yeah, a little bit. It changes some of that, but I think we are who we are. We've got to be able to get the ball in our playmakers' hands, and I thought both of those guys did that. And I thought Kalen had a nice day again. Every week he seems to be getting a little bit better and is becoming quite a force at tight end. And of course Isaiah breaking that long one. He's a guy that has done that every game so far, so it's been nice.
He might have a target on his back. We'll talk about him in a minute. We touched on injuries. You've had a rash of them. Just kind of give us here in the middle of the week the latest in terms of some of the key injuries we need to pay attention to.
Sure. Jordan Norwine is going to be out this week because of the concussion. Same with Steven Lopez, who was our offensive guard. He suffered a concussion in the game, and both of those guys are getting better, but they won't be available this week. So those are two big losses, especially with having some injuries at quarterback already. Billy Ritchie is probably going to be questionable come game time. He's getting better every day. Gunner Griffin should be clear to go, but Sergio will still be out. So, our quarterback situation is still pretty thin.
It's a good thing you have like 6 of them.
Yeah, going into the season, that was kind of a joking point for everybody, is that, well, you got 6, 7 quarterbacks, what are you going to do with them all? And I guess the answer 4 weeks in is play them, right? So, but no, guys are getting healthy. Ontario is going to be probably questionable, a game time decision as well. But we've got guys who are stepping up. They're doing a good job. But there's no doubt that injuries, play a role and make you tweak and adjust things.
Yeah, every team deals with that at some point. Let's talk a little bit about Taylor University. Tell us about them. I know, recently they played kind of a bigger school, but talk about Taylor.
They're a good football team. They're very similar to us, I think. They've played some good competition. They've played Butler. They've played Walsh, I believe. And and then Olivet last week. So they got a win last week against Olivet. They've played some really good football teams there. They've got a tight end who's a two-time first-team all-conference tight end. That's a very good player. Their quarterback is returning. He's only a sophomore, but he's 6'4", 200 and some pounds, and he's a very good quarterback. So I think that they are very similar to us in a lot of ways. They're a little bit better this year in their defensive line, we feel, and probably not quite as good in their secondary, but that's also because they're losing Souders, who was all-conference and even at one time Defensive Player of the Year in the conference. So he graduated, and he was tough against us last year. So their strengths kind of switched around a little bit defensively, but they're very strong up front on the defensive line, and that'll be a challenge for our offense.
I know that the front part of your schedule has been pretty difficult. You played 3 nationally ranked teams, and now things settle down a little bit. Does that encourage your guys a little bit? I mean, obviously they wanted to rise to the challenge, and yet it's also nice to know maybe we're not playing the Green Bay Packers.
No, absolutely. I think we've got to take some of the positives out of last week and the momentum out of last week of just saying that when we play our game and we execute, that we really are a good football team. We can play with really anybody in the country. I mean, Marion ranked number 1, and that's a very, very good football team. There's no doubt. I told the guys on Monday when we were kind of doing our game wrap-up, there's no doubt that Marion's going to be in the mix for the national championship again. Whether they're in the semifinals or in the finals again, they're going to be right there. That's a really good team, and we played them toe-to-toe. And when you watch the film, there's moments in that game where we played them as good as anybody did, and that includes UND and some good teams. So I think that our guys have to take that confidence, and we've got to make that a 60-minute game. Now, what the difference is that we now match up a little bit better position to position versus the teams that we've seen where we know that we're not as good at this position or that position. So we just got to go out there and execute and do our core fundamentals, play hard, and be focused on what our assignment is.
The competition's been very difficult, and so your statistics look pretty bad defensively. You're giving up a lot of points. What are maybe some of the bright spots, though, on the defensive side of the ball for you guys?
Well, I think, we've got guys that are making plays. Keenan Savage is right at the top of the conference in tackles, and I think he is exactly what we thought he was when we brought him in. I think Eddie Calderon is playing at a high level. Sean Geary's playing at a high level. So, I believe we have about 3 guys that are in the top 10 in total tackles in the conference, and those are the guys that we're relying on. I think the silver lining on our defense is that our pass defense has been really good throughout the course of the year. When you're talking stop the run, that really comes down to your defensive line and your linebackers, and we know that our defensive line is undersized. Our defensive line coach totaled up and averaged out our total weight on a defensive line, and we're under 230 pounds average. So that's obviously something that we've got to recruit to and get a little bit more size there. Those guys keep getting better every week, and they're battling. So that's all we can ask. But eventually, when you're talking, when you get down to the nuts and bolts of this game, it starts with your O-line and your D-line, and can you win at the line of scrimmage? And we're starting to get to the point where I think we match up pretty well against some teams.
And if you win at the line of scrimmage and can flip it out to number 12, he can make plays. Talk about Isaiah every week. He kind of just extends his own records of how many yards he gets per catch.
No, he's fun to watch. He's got great hands. He's a big playability. He's got sneaky speed. I think he's such a long strider that you don't realize how fast he is, but he can really run, and when he catches the ball in space, it's tough to catch him. So that's where I think going forward, especially this week against Taylor, I think that it'll be interesting to see how they game plan to face Isaiah, because I think that he can really do some damage against their secondary. Are they going to double cover him? And if it does, how's that affect Kalen Petty, and how's that affect Sean Calhoun and Michael Beekert and those guys? So, he's a big weapon, and that's something we've been lacking for the first 2 years of the program, so it's nice to see.
You talked about Kalen Petty, and he was MIA the first couple of weeks getting healthy, and just week by week he's getting healthier and looking more like Kalen Petty.
Yeah, he's a force, 265 pounds at 6'3", and he's got great hands. So he's a force every week. He's a guy that teams are going to have to game plan for. And again, what that does is in the past, we really didn't have that complementary game changer that we do now with Isaiah and even Sean and Mike Beekert and Carson Beanie, some of these guys that are making plays. This week we'll get Dalton Barkham back off of injury. Cameron Crozier has been playing really well as well. So we have some other weapons that you just can't double team and take Kalen away and then play man-to-man across the board, because I think we got some guys who can really win across the board. So it's tough if you're facing our offense in that sense.
Coaches talk about all three phases of the game: offense, defense, special teams. And on special teams, your kicker, your punter are really terrific. Yeah. But you've struggled a little bit in other aspects of the return games, either covering them or returning them. What are you guys going to do different this week?
We've really sat down and made some personnel changes. That's one thing that we've really done. We've got to get guys on there that are going to go all out. I mean, when you're Coach Sweat, our special teams coordinator, he calls the special teams the wild bunch. And if you're going to be on the wild bunch, you got to play wild. You got to have the kind of that reckless abandon. So we got to get some guys who are going to fly down the field and go make plays. And what we need some of those guys that aren't getting a lot of time to take that pride and really take interest in it, because that's very, very important. And we've got to do a better job of getting them to buy into that factor. But I think after this week, they were all kind of knew that they weren't given what they're capable of, and they're seeing how that's playing into the bigger scheme of things. So it's just something we're really focusing on this week, and we're going to continue to focus on it because we need that aspect of the game for sure.
Big game on Saturday, Taylor University and the Spartans. Brad Seigan will have the play-by-play for you. That's Jason Buryanek. I'm Harry Schrader. You've been watching the Missouri Baptist Coaches Show for Missouri Baptist Football here on the Spartan Digital Network.